Hello and welcome to episode number 95 of the HaskinCast Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Haskin, here to take you on another journey with another wonderful guest. And I just want to let you guys know of a couple things that are coming up while I have a moment to talk to you before I bring my guest on. So you're kind of trapped, like you're hungry on an airplane and you really don't want to spend the $5 on the cookie, but you got to eat it because it's 6 hours until you get to your destination and there's no meal service. However, I'll be brief. So just a couple things I wanted to let you know. I am going to be doing some walkthroughs now that I have proper software and a sound card that has a loopback function. Thank you, Motu, for the M4. It is absolutely fantastic. Really, really love the sound quality of it. But I'm going to be doing some walkthroughs. So I talked earlier about my friend Eduardo Terralante, who came out with his new instrument, Nada, which I absolutely love. It is a beautiful, beautiful new age sort of sound library. I think it has a lot of other uses, but that's the main focus of it. And I'm going to be doing a sort of walkthrough tutorial on that. That will be on my YouTube channel. Also, I'm going to be doing a couple of tutorials on how I do my podcast. And the first tutorial I'm going to do is featuring Audionamics product IDC, the Instant Dialogue Cleaner, which I use on absolutely every podcast. I will not do a show without it unless I had to, in which case I guess I'd have to, but I try not to. I haven't had to yet. I've been using it for a year now because I started using it right before NAMM of 2019. And I've recently returned from NAMM of 2020. So yeah, it's a great product. It's really helped with the sound quality and also with the amount of time it takes me to prepare an episode. Whereas the way I was doing it before was very painstaking. It took several hours. Now it only takes about an hour and a half, but a good chunk of that is just rendering. And I can be doing other things while I'm rendering the podcast. I actually don't spend a lot of time editing it. And I'll get to all that when I do the rest of the tutorial. But the first tutorial I'm going to do is just on the IDC, the Instant Dialogue Cleaner. I've tried to do tutorials in the background in the past, and until I got to Rick Allen's tutorial for his instrument, I didn't really have a good way of doing it. And the loopback function on my new audio interface is what is really going to help me to get a good quality of sound. So there's one tip right there. Make sure if you're doing tutorials that your sound card has a loopback function. What the loopback function does, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is it allows you to record the sound from the computer, because without an in and out for the actual computer noise itself, you don't have a way to route it out of the computer and back in through the interface. And if you're using cabling to do it, I don't know why, but for some reason, it just does not come out well. I've not been able to figure that out. Really don't care though, because I now have a loopback function. So when I did my tutorial for Rick Allen, that was the first time using the loopback function. It worked beautifully and allowed me to actually let you hear the sounds from the computer as I was playing them, and I'll be doing that with everything else. So when I'm editing with IDC, you could hear the difference. You can hear why I use it and how simple and powerful of a tool it really is. And I had a great time visiting with my friends over there at NAMM. They were one of the first booths I went to, and talked to them actually several times throughout the trip. So great to see you guys. And what else? So that's the main thing. I'm heading up now. This is episode 95. So we're getting close to episode 100. Cannot wait to bring that to you guys. It is getting close. And I've got a couple of special guests lined up in the meantime, as well as a couple other things I'm going to do to bring you to episode 100. Then I'm going to be taking a short break. I've got a lot of composing to do and some song editing for another project, as well as some music I'm writing for another project. So going to back off of the podcast a little bit so I can get through some of those things and get that music out. And then I'll be back. And if I have, the tough thing is always scheduling. So I've talked to a lot of people about being on the show. A lot of them are interested in being on the show. And then when it comes time, they kind of either disappear, which throws off my scheduling. And so I'm going to, as I get episodes in, I may still bring that out during the break. I tried to take a break over the summer. That didn't really work because some of the guests that I had lined up came through, and I didn't really want to sit on those episodes because a couple of them were time sensitive. So I just ended up bringing the podcast back. So I'm going to be taking a hiatus after episode 100, and really excited to bring you my episode 100 guest, along with every guest that I bring on the show, because why wouldn't I be? Somebody wants to take the time to talk to me on my show and talk to you guys, and hopefully, build an even bigger fan base than they already have. And maybe you guys enjoy it, or you learn something in the process and you're entertained, then it's all worth it. So why would I hold back episodes? If I've got one, I want to get it out to you guys. That being said, though, I had done a special scheduling for episode 100, as you will eventually see. So congratulations to Kimberly, who's got another book out. She was a recent podcast guest for the release of her book, Greta Garbage, which is a very difficult emotional roller coaster. And I've got some other friends that are having projects come out soon. So I'm hoping to have them on the show as well and talk about their new releases and the amazing things that they're all up to. And that's about it. So I am ready to bring on my guest this week, Laurie Love, who, if you remember the episode I did just before Christmas with Brian Skiba, Brian is Laurie's husband, and they work together in films. But Laurie is also a very accomplished actor, and she's done a lot of work behind the scenes, very knowledgeable in the film industry. And she's one of those people, and this is one of the things I love the most about her. She's one of those people that she doesn't just have an idea and go, oh yeah, well that'd be great to do one day. No, she does everything that she can to make it happen. And I absolutely love that about her. I really think that a lot of people could just accomplish things if they would just get going, if they would find some starting point and just start moving forward. A lot of times things come together when you just get started. And it's interesting that I'm bringing that up because I had just heard that on another podcast a couple of days ago, where people, they were saying that, and I really do believe this, a lot of the projects don't ever find success because you just don't get started. And I don't see a point of one day if, or I wish I would have, or that sort of thing. I'm one of those people that, much like Laurie, if I have an opportunity to do something and it seems like a good idea, I go for it. Not everything is going to work out. I had at one time a mental sauna app for the iPhone, and I was very excited about it. It cost me a fortune to develop it. Unfortunately, I did not hire the best developer, but the app worked. I would have liked some changes on it that would have been too costly under that particular developer's guidance. But it was a thing, and it stayed out there for I think I had it out there for a year, and because I couldn't really get the app where I wanted it to be, and I couldn't afford the marketing, it didn't really hit. I sold a good amount. And I got a lot of feedback on it. People really seemed to enjoy it. It was something that basically was designed to help you sleep. There's still a tutorial on it out there on YouTube. And, it was just kind of a neat thing. And I was really excited to be able to put it out there. It didn't pan out the way I had hoped. But you know what? If I wouldn't have gone for it, nobody would have ever heard it. Nobody would have ever enjoyed it or gotten some benefit from it. And even with the amount of success I had, I have to say it was worth doing. And if you've got an idea, you might not know the best way to do it, but sometimes you just got to get started. And a lot of times things will fall into place. So kudos to Laurie for projects that she's working on. We're going to talk about her script that was kind of the premise of this part of the opening. And I'm really excited to find out more about that. And we talk about all kinds of things. And it's a great interview and a great time talking to my dear friend, Laurie Love. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me with another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am very excited to bring on this week's guest, Laurie Love, who is, I could say she does one or two things in film, but she really kind of does a lot of things. And we're going to get into all of that. Let's welcome Laurie. Laurie, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
Good morning. I am so grateful that you found some time between writing films, making films, managing your household, all those things that you do to actually sit down and talk with me.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thanks. Well, we've been at this for a while trying to make this come together. And it seems to be, though, with most of my guests, I tend to talk to people who are very active and very busy. And it's always a challenge trying to schedule. So thank you very much for your patience working with me through all of that. we've got a lot to talk about. Where do you want to start?
We do. Let's see. Currently, right now, I have a script I'm working on. It's a thriller script that's been in my mind for a while. And, I had pitched it. There's a general interest in it. However, it's just something I had to get off my head. So I'm about 30 pages in, and I'm, burning the midnight oil after all the kids are asleep. And
Right. Yeah.
I get a minute to myself of peace and quiet. So it's slow going, but it's happening.
Sure. Do you tend to get a lot of your ideas during the day and you just have to run and jot down a note and then go fix lunch?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I should write down more stuff during the day because I get so forgetful. There's so much going on.
Well, one thing that I started doing, because I often get interrupted a lot and pulled in different directions, nowhere near to the extent that you do, but I have a couple of different methods. I have just, my regular voice recorder. I have, I can voice text myself a note, but I've also been using an app. I can't think of what it is. I'll find it in a minute, but just to kind of like jot down those notes so that I don't forget. But the problem is if you have too many places, then it's, where did I put that note? So I'm trying to like find one concise place that I'm happy with. Evernote is what it's called. I use Evernote quite a bit. But yeah, do you have a method for kind of keeping everything collectively together so that when you go to work, you can just grab it and go?
I do. I take notes on my computer. I always have some type of Word document or in my notes on my phone. Mm-hmm. I'm always typing in ideas. I'm a pitch writer as well. So a lot of times I'll, just be sitting somewhere at lunch or in the drive line to pick up my kids and come up with an idea and just quickly jot it down and get to it later.
Do you find that you come up with far more ideas than you can ever execute?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I feel that way
Absolutely.
too. The list of projects I have on my wall right now it would take 3 lifetimes to finish. And it really becomes like a pick and choose. So with this particular one, you really seem like you're passionate about it, like it's something that you really feel is worth pursuing.
Well, I am, because it's loosely, and I say loosely, it's based on a true story of something that happened to me. And then, my imagination went wild after that.
Sure.
I thought, this would be a great, lifetime style thriller movie. And I have to write this. I just have to. I can't stop thinking about it.
I love that. I think things come out the best when they're the most natural. And when you're just in that zone, things tend to just kind of roll out very nicely. And I find that it's something that you have to edit less because it just rolls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'm excited to see this happen.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's going to.
And so now you guys just finished up another movie, though. You were just down in Florida shooting.
We did. That's Deadly Excursion 2. It's a sequel to Deadly Excursion. It was also known as Paradise Prey overseas. Mm-hmm. The first film was with Lifetime and did very well. Ratings were great. I mean, the actors were phenomenal. That was a story that I pitched and came up with and came to fruition. So it was quite extraordinary seeing your work show up that way.
Oh, absolutely. What's the timeline, if you know, and where will we be able to see this?
The first Deadly Excursion is available already on Amazon and VUDU and different outlets. This film, I believe, I'm hoping to see it come out this spring. I don't quote me on that, but I believe that that's what we're shooting for. Mm-hmm. It's in post-production right now and moving right along.
Very cool. Well, yeah. And that's the thing is you've wrapped, but there's all the other stuff that needs to happen before it can actually hit any outlet whatsoever. And if it's in theaters, that takes the longest because they have to produce a print that can go out to all the theaters. I imagine they do that digitally now.
Yeah. Yep, they do.
See, that's how old and how little I pay attention. Because I'm picturing they're actually like making spools, of film and all that, which I don't think we've done in a very long time. Well, that's cool. And how does it feel though to have something that you created not only gain a following and be something that's popular, but actually warrant a sequel?
It feels really, really good. When I first was inspired by this idea, I actually had a dream. I was reading a book at the time, and I can't remember the book now, but it had to do with sailing. Mm-hmm. And I fell asleep, and it was at this time in my life where I was struggling because I was fully, at home, and I kind of took a step back from everything with my career. And I was trying to figure out what I could do and where I could use my talents. And then I had this dream. And I had this dream about this mom and this daughter and her rescuing her. And it was out in the ocean. And I couldn't shake it. It was one of those things I just could not shake it. So I felt I had to write it down, and I pitched it. And, the pitch got legs. Mm-hmm. So, alongside my husband, and another gentleman named Ned, we wrote the movie, and, it came to life. And, here we are, on the second, the sequel to this film. And it all started with just a thought, just a dream, just
Well, there's that organic development that I was saying. It's the things usually come out the best when you're not trying to do something, when you just let it come out. Mm-hmm. But I love that you took a step back and kind of evaluated your career, because so much of what I hear, with different podcasts that I listen to and different sort of quote unquote experts in the field, everybody says, you have to keep driving, you have to keep pushing, you can't let your name disappear for even a day because people will forget you. Mm-hmm. But to take a step away from that and really evaluate what you want, where you feel you're best suited, I think that's so important to do every once in a while. Mm-hmm. Good for you. Was it an easy thing for you to say you needed to do that, or was it something you kind of toiled over for a bit?
No, it wasn't easy. Going from, I was acting in an up and coming, producer to, just putting it on hold and, being a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. It was a huge change, but it was the right thing to do at that time.
Right.
And it was the best thing to do. And, I really found I could work in this business in other ways that way. What were my abilities? And I found them.
Well, that's great. I think that if you hadn't have done that, you could end up just getting stuck in a position that maybe long-term you're not going to be happy with.
Yeah. Definitely.
Very good. I really wish more people would do that. I try to do that every once in a while. In fact, I'm making a bit of a career switch myself musically. And I think if you don't evaluate every once in a while, you're just missing so many opportunities. So my advice to everyone is take a step back every once in a while. Make sure you still enjoy what you do, and it's not just something that you do because that's what you thought you wanted to do, or you've gained a certain amount of notoriety. Make sure you're happy, because if you're not happy doing what you're doing, what's the point?
Exactly. And I realized through that time how much, I love filmmaking. I love the whole process from script to screen, mm-hmm. and being involved in it. And I kept my toes in the water. But, I think my husband, he said in his podcast that I gave up my acting career. And I was like, no, I never gave up. Mm-hmm. It's just not in my nature. And I never gave up. I put a pause on it for a little bit, but I never gave up.
Yeah. And he was very, very kind in appreciating how much that you've sacrificed, because you're raising the family while he's off shooting films, and then you go when you're able to, and mm-hmm. it's so much to manage. And we'll talk about that a bit later. But I really love how sincere and how much he really just appreciates everything that you've contributed to his career as well, because you guys really have sort of a joint career.
We do. We've worked together for a very long time.
Yes, you have. Well, I first met you guys when you had wrapped, I think it was the first time that you shot Blood Moon Rising in Phoenix. And then you guys shot it again, which was great because you were able to get a little money and do a more enhanced version of it. Were you able to learn a lot doing it the first time that you've been able to take forward into that second revisit of it?
Oh my gosh, that whole thing was a learning process. It was absolutely nuts, but we just went for it. And we had to wear so many hats, and this is, something that taught me a lot, learning every position and, knowing these positions and knowing what it takes and doing everything on such a micro budget.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you take it bigger and bigger every step you take.
Sure.
But yeah, the first Blood Moon, it was for a competition film.
Mm-hmm.
And, excuse me, it was for the Seven Deadly.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Seven Deadly Films. Yeah. And it was played at Alice Cooperstown for the premiere. And there, we were invited as filmmakers to come do a short film. And we did this fun, campy horror grindhouse film. And, people at the show started quoting all the lines and laughing, and wherever we went, we heard people talking about the movie. So then we said, you know what, we really have something here. Let's make it into a feature.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to at that point. I mean, when you're an independent filmmaker, the whole point is to get something that reaches people. And then, if you're getting a little bit of a buzz just on that indie level, imagine if you could get it out nationally or worldwide. How do you not go for it?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you got Ron Jeremy in the other feed in the second version of it. I met him when I lived in LA, and he was a very nice guy.
He is. He's a really nice guy. He's really, really funny too. Mm-hmm. Really funny.
Yeah, he is, and he plays a mean harmonica.
Yes, he does.
I never thought I would be at a red carpet event in LA, standing next to Ron Jeremy, listening to him play Amazing Grace on harmonica. It was one of those moments that. You can't plan stuff like that. but yeah, people have a really weird perception of him because of his background, but he's a very down to earth, just really nice, generous guy. And I was really glad I got to spend some time with him.
Yeah, he is. He's quite a riot to be around.
For sure. Now, you guys have done a lot of work together, and you've done, now when Brian was on, we were just talking about the new Christmas movie that he did, Adventures with Santa, which I really liked. I thought it was a great movie, and there's certain things that kind of with Christmas movies follow a certain formula where everything's going to work out. You want something warm for the holidays. You don't want necessarily anything that's going to be too tense. You want a good ride. And you've just done another Christmas movie.
Yes, we did a movie called Hark, Christmas in the Key of Hark. That was starring Jamie Luner. William Catt played her father, and we have quite a few other amazing actors in that film. We filmed it out here in Santa Clarita, California.
Nice.
So that was nice in my hometown.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are wondering why you know William Catt's name, he was the lead in the show The Greatest American Hero.
Yay!
I loved that show. I think we all wanted to be him, I think, at one point or another, just be able to just, strip off the jacket and start flying around and fighting crime. And it's kind of like every boy's dream. And of course, Jamie's great. Jamie, we were talking about it before we started recording, but Jamie, and I talked to Brian about her too, starred in the show Just the 10 of Us. She was in Melrose Place. Just the 10 of Us was a spinoff of the show Growing Pains. Which was there was a great time, I think, in the 80s for sitcoms.
Totally.
Have you ever wanted to do a television series?
Absolutely.
I think it would be fun. What kind would you want to do?
I really like sitcoms. Mm-hmm. I would really love to do a sitcom. Yeah.
I think that would be fun. I think it's a whole different world, obviously, than film, because you have to, the number of stories that you have to come up with, the timelines for television are very intense.
Totally. But I would love to learn it. I like a challenge, and I'd love to see that side of things.
Yeah. I see you being one of those people that really isn't afraid to take any opportunity on.
Yeah, I guess that's how you'd explain me. I'm an Aries. I just, when there's something I want or I want to do, I go for it. I've had, a life full of people telling me I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, you're too this, you're too that, you're not enough of this, you're never gonna, and every time I thought to myself, watch me, I'm going to do it.
I think that's the difference. I think that the people that tend to be successful, and I'm only talking about people who have had those influences, because you can be perfectly successful without people telling you can't do it. But I think the people that have heard those things, especially through the majority of their life, they tend to be more successful if they're willing to just not go with the grain, and they're going to stand up against it and go, I don't really care if you're right or not. I'm going to do it because this makes me happy, and I think I've got some skill and I want to do it.
Yeah, and you're going to work hard to get there. Mm-hmm. You're going to put the work in.
Did you feel though that sometimes hearing that so much, did you ever buy into it?
Sometimes it hurt. Mm-hmm. It really did, but I think it gave me more of a fire to try harder and to prove to myself that I can do it. I don't have to listen to, what these people are saying. That's their own opinion.
Right. And the sad thing is, it's usually the people that are really close to you, whether it's, your nuclear family, your slightly extended family, your closest friends. And I get that they're coming from a standpoint of, you need security, you need to build a foundation in your life. And the entertainment industry is so iffy. I get where they're coming from, but I think a lot of them too come from, well, I wanted to do it and I didn't. So I don't want to see somebody else be successful and show me I should have gone for it. Mm-hmm. Whether it's subconscious or not, I think that there's a lot of that underneath, but good for you for not conforming to it.
Thank you.
I think, I see life as an opportunity. And if we're not taking opportunities to do things that we enjoy or things that make us happy, and especially carrying that on to things that make other people happy, what's the point? What are we doing?
Yeah.
So good for you. I like you even more now because I didn't know.
Oh, thanks. I like you too.
Well, thank you. So you have you've produced movies, you've written movies. Have you directed at all?
In college I did direct a short. That short actually went on to win quite a bit of awards and premiered during Sundance for the SoCal Cinema Slam. It won Best Picture in that as well.
Wow.
However, it's funny because Brian was talking the other day. He's like, yeah, I think you should try directing. And I kind of laughed and I said, you know what? I don't want to do it. And he's like, I think you'd be really good at it. I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's just, I guess that's not my passion.
Right. Yeah. I think I could be good at playing polka music all day long, but it doesn't mean I want to.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things. And I've always said that, an actor should direct something and a director should act in something, really understand the other side so that you can learn to work together well. But if it's not something that you want to do beyond doing it for the learning experience, why would you? Especially when you have a husband who's a very good director and very successful.
Yeah. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you did it, and I like that you were successful at it. Do you think that it made you a better actor?
Absolutely. 100%.
How do you look at it differently now that you've been on the other side?
Oh my gosh. From being on the business side of film, to the creative side, from behind the camera and to the front of the camera, there's so many different dynamics. But when you understand all of the dynamics, it makes things a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. If you understand, camera angles and lighting and this and that, you're better prepared as an actor than, just walking up and, regurgitating your lines.
Right. And I think too that actors tend to, and I'm not an actor, so I may be out of line saying this, but my perception is that when they're working on a scene, they're thinking that the director is really just focused on that scene, where the director is also thinking about the cinematography, the lighting, the budget, the next shot, the thing they have to do next week. There's all that is swirling around them while they're trying to focus on that particular scene. So there's a lot more than just, let me work with you on your dialogue. It's everything.
Everything.
Yeah. And I think as an actor, once you understand that, I think you would tend to have a little more patience with the director, a little more, maybe team spirit. I don't know if that's the right word.
I think that works.
Yeah. It just seems like it to me anyway. But again, like I said, I'm not an actor, but as a film composer, I definitely try to think of that. Like, I'm like, hey, I need an answer on this. Why aren't they getting back to me while they're in Europe shooting a scene right now? Not concerned about the music for a scene they're not shooting right now. So it definitely, it's on a completely different film. So yeah, I think that just the understanding of the different relationships and where people are at can really help in, especially a film, because it can be a really tense process.
It is. It's a fast, intense micro business with a limited amount of time.
Yes. But when you are on set, even as an actor, you're doing more than just acting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of things do you typically end up involved in, whether it was intended or not?
So, as far as if I'm producing or just acting?
Just acting.
Oh, geez.
I could see you being one of those people that just kind of jumps in and helps out wherever you're needed, even if that's not what you were there for.
Yes, that might be correct. If you need me, I'm there. I'm that girl,
Yeah. Do you think that comes from working in independent film where you kind of had to wear a bunch of hats?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, even in Florida, it started to torrentially rain on us, and, I was pulling in gear and doing everything I could to help, and just sometimes in those independent film situations, you are wearing a lot of hats. You are craft services for a minute. You are, a PA for, a day. You are producing. You are the line producer. You are,
Sure.
You are it.
I think it's pretty bold to shoot in places where there's potential weather danger. I mean, there's always that anywhere you go, but in California, you're always dealing with potential rain. In Florida, you've got hurricanes, you've got all kinds of storms and things that can come out. You've got alligators, and if you shoot in the South in the springtime or in Nebraska, you've got potential tornadoes. So I always kind of admire people that are willing to take on potentially dangerous or set disrupting locations. But sometimes there's a need. Yeah, you have to shoot in certain areas to bring out the realism in the film.
Absolutely.
You can't always make California look like Florida.
No, you can't. You can't. But, those types of films, I mean, for me, that's kind of what I love about it, that adventure. And, you're doing it as a team and getting through it. And the product you have at the end is absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
And you guys had some problems on this one, though, didn't you, with some rain?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, the week I came out to set, I was like, Brian, is it going to be cold? No, it's been perfect, beautiful weather, blah, blah, blah. I show up and it just starts torrentially raining. It is cold. We are on boats all day, getting, people getting in and out of the water. We ended up on an island filled with feral raccoons, which is odd.
Yeah, that's about as random as it gets right there.
Yeah. We were filming a scene with Corin Nemec, and we're out in the city in this, treed area. And then a huge group of wild monkeys just starts running by. So, I'm like, where am I right now? It's the Wizard of Oz.
So is your next film going to be shot in like South Africa?
You never know. You never know.
I think that's got to be probably, aside from like the Arctic regions, I would have to think that's probably one of the most difficult places to shoot just because of the wildlife alone. But feral raccoons in Florida, how can you see that coming?
I know, you can't.
I don't know that anyone's ever hired a raccoon handler for a film, but I kind of feel like there's a need for that now.
We needed one because one of the raccoons tried to steal our sound guy's equipment.
Oh no.
It was great.
I don't know. I mean, I've been on set doing sound before, and I can say the gear is not tasty. So they were making a bad choice right there.
They were.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing. Now you have this situation that comes up. You've got the weather, you've got the raccoons, and you still push through. You get the film done. Were you able to finish it on time?
Yes, we were. Absolutely. 100%.
Excellent. Now, when you are strategizing and kind of planning out the schedule, do you allow for a certain number of random days for events like that?
No.
Well, you can't, right? Because your budget really doesn't allow for you to say, we're just going to have a couple, like 3 or 4 days that we're just going to stick in there just in case, because you have people to pay, locations to pay, hotel bills, food, all that stuff.
Absolutely. And you're really doing a lot of thinking and solving problems on the fly. You have to stick to your schedule as best you can, and you have to make a lot of compromises, but you don't want to compromise what's on the screen.
Right.
So, that's really important, but you've got, your budget to worry about, and your cast and crew and your timeline.
Now, how do you, I've never actually looked at how somebody breaks down a shooting schedule. Where do you start? Page 1. I mean, do you just like look at all the scenes and make a list and go, okay, here's all the locations. This location appears in scene 1, 7, and 12. So we need to shoot all those together. And then what outfits are they wearing so that we make sure that we have them in the right outfit for the right day? I mean, there's so much to it.
Yeah, there is. And, that's basically kind of how you go about it. In the different departments, they break down the script, in their own ways, just as wardrobe would be breaking down the script, for wardrobe in those scenes. And, everybody works together like it's kind of like a symphony or an orchestra where they all, everyone comes together, and then you have your map and you have, your guidelines, and that's what you're shooting, and that's what you go from.
So I would think that much like casting is going to decide the quality of your film, because so much rides on that.
It does.
Hiring the right department heads, it would also be the other side of the success of a film.
Yes. It's extremely important to have a good team and people that you can trust and people that can work independently. Hopefully low drama.
Well, that's the real key, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, the situation for someone who's never been on a film set, it's always presented as this, oh, it's fun and we were joking around and we played gags on each other. But the fact of the matter is, it's actually can be a very, very tense situation. The sun's going down. We need to get this shot. We've been trying for an hour and you guys keep laughing. We need to get this and move on. And people that are even the nicest people can lose their cool. I'm sure that you've seen that happen many times.
I have seen that happen many times. We've, had to send people home, send them packing.
Yeah.
It's just one of, it, like I said before, these movies, it's just like, it's this small, micro business, and you have a limited amount of time, where, on independent films, you might have a week or 2 weeks of pre-production. Then you're in, shooting 6 days on, 1 day off for 2 weeks. And that's all you got. Right. And that's not a lot.
Or 4 months of weekends.
Exactly. Or that too.
Which is even harder because you're, as an actor, you're not really connecting one take to another take from a different weekend. And so you might not remember that you were wearing a watch, or, you had your hair a little bit different. And if no one's paying attention to that, I can see a lot of mistakes coming from that. And it's funny when you watch a feature film, like in the Die Hard with Justin Long, I think that was 4. There's a scene where he's walking behind Bruce Willis and he's talking, but his mouth isn't moving. And you look at this, this is a big multi-million-dollar production, and you would think that someone would catch that. But in the independent world, there aren't a lot of people that will, that are going to view it and be able to catch those things. So you really have to work twice as hard to make the film as good as it can be.
Exactly. And then, that comes back to, having a good crew and a good team. If you have, a great script supervisor and a great wardrobe person that knows these things and knows the script back and forth and knows what their people are wearing and is prepared, you're not going to run into those problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of like a quality control.
Very much so. Yeah. And you do test audiences or test screenings for different people. And, you'd think that someone somewhere along the line would pick up something that's at least a little more major, like a coffee cup or, something out of place. Well, what do you think, though, in putting a production together? Are there any other things that you can do besides those to really set it up for success? And when I say success, I'm not talking about the commercial success of the film, just the success of having a good production.
I really, really think that having a good production starts in pre-production. Mm-hmm. Pre-production, I feel, is the most integral part of planning your film. And if you do a proper pre-production, you will be prepared for everything that, well, you can't always be prepared, but, for everything that comes at you, if you are organized enough and you have everything in place, you're well on your way.
Yeah.
There's always wrenches that get thrown into the mix, though.
Well, sure. But the more prepared you are, the less wrenches there will be and the easier it is to handle them. If you're just having wrenches thrown at you left and right, then, you're going to have a difficult time.
Yeah. And if you can go into production and the only thing you have to worry about is, okay, this actor's, schedule that you're bringing in, you have to change things around. Well, it's something you always have to deal with, but it's better than going, okay, well, who's our caterer?
Right.
What, who's picking this person up from the airport?
Right. And now that you've gone from indie to a little bit better budgeted productions, I would imagine that it's a little easier to coordinate some of that stuff because you can actually hire a few more people to handle some of those minor details and you don't really need to focus on that as much.
Yes. Actually, it's really nice. It's nice to have, instead of doing everything yourself, to have, employees and colleagues working along with you. Mm-hmm.
So when you look back to a film like Blood Moon Rising, which was really sort of a guerrilla filmed production, are you just glad you're where you're at now?
I am, but I wouldn't change it for the world. That was the best learning experience I could have ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, we had killer bees on our set one day that we had to get removed. There was so much on that movie. It was so hot. It was like 117. Mm-hmm. And we were sweating at CGS Studios inside. So the sweat in that movie is real.
I loved CGS Studios it was in Glendale, I think. And that was that was such a great location. They had so many great places. You could make it look like a Western. You could make it look like a modern film. There was one house that was hidden in the trees that I thought would be great to shoot a horror film at that I was never able to get back there to do. But they were a very accommodating, great lot. And just who knew it was even there? It was just in the middle of the city. Yeah,
it was such a gem. We had location scouted all over Arizona to Tucson, everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And we found CGS Studios and it was perfect.
Yeah.
But, now it doesn't exist anymore because it burnt down.
Right. Yeah. Well, they were closing it anyway, I thought.
Yeah, they were closing it. It was going to be apartments or something.
Yeah. Boy, how sad is that? But there's so many, many great studios. It's just because we've both filmed there, there's that sentimental attachment and I wish I would have done this and that sort of thing. But it was a great place. But certainly shooting in 117 degrees and being in any of those buildings, there's really no air conditioning. There's no, which you can't run when you're filming anyway. Nope. If there was, at best, you're just going to blast it between takes. Mm-hmm. But how cold is it going to get? Not very cold. So it's not. Shooting in the summertime in Arizona, man, kudos to anybody. And especially because you guys were wearing a lot of makeup and things, that just had to be tough.
It was tough.
So why do we keep putting ourselves through all these ridiculous things, Laurie? Why do we do it?
I think we like to torture ourselves a little bit for our art. But, it's all about the excitement. And if you love something enough, you're willing to do it. And it's part of the adventure. It's part of what is exciting to me. as a, a producer or an actress is, being in these elements and, making it happen, even though the world is still going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stories to tell.
Yeah, well, for sure. But there really just must be something that we love so deeply that we're willing to not just put ourselves through it, but not even think about what we're putting ourselves through. We just jump in and do it because it's what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, 18 hours a day. What?
Yeah. Yeah. And for you as a producer, especially, it's not even just about the, 12, 16 hours on set. It's about all the paperwork you have to do, all the planning, mm-hmm. all the, releases and signatures and all that you need to get, and making sure everybody's ready for the next day and the day after that. There's so much work a producer does that it's kind of just dumbfounding that anyone would ever want to do it.
I know. Again, that self-torture thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think you figured it out.
Yeah, good. See, I don't just want to help people. I want to solve problems and just uncover all the mysteries.
You've gotten to the core.
Yes. I'll be taking on the pyramids next week. Have you ever shot off of the continent?
No. The farthest out of the country I've been is Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We have a feature that we actually shot a feature film before Blood Moon Rising.
Oh.
But that one has never seen the light of day. It was another sci-fi film.
Mm-hmm.
And that one we did in Mexico. We filmed that in Puerto Penasco and Rocky Point.
Oh, wow. And what was that one called?
That was called Out of Reach.
Okay.
And it's still out of reach because no one will ever see it.
What an ironic title that is.
Yeah.
Is there hope that one will see the light of day at some point?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think I might be embarrassed because my acting was not as on point at that time. However, you never know. I'd like to resurrect something. There's another film that has been on the shelf for about 10 years now, Crushed Velvet, that I really want to bring off the shelf.
So do I. I really want to see this final film. There's a lovely trailer that you had posted a couple of years ago, and mm-hmm. I had seen some shots from the set before, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And when I saw the trailer, I'm like, I really want to see this. I'm glad this is finally happening. And then, of course, it hasn't yet, but I am holding out solid hope that it will.
I love it. Keep your fingers crossed. I'm in the works on something and trying to get it out there. So
good. Well, I have to say, and I haven't had him on the show yet. We've been also trying to arrange a good time. Kevin Tai, who is a fantastic film composer, and he owns a studio in Mesa, Arizona. Very nice place he's built out there. He does a lot of voiceover sessions and things, and a really good friend of mine. And he has a mohawk in that film, which is a good foot high.
It is. It was amazing. He was so good in that movie.
He's a very good actor, and it's tough with guys like him because I love seeing him work as a composer. I love mm-hmm. seeing him work as a studio engineer because he's so good at it, but I also miss seeing him as an actor.
Yeah. I hope he keeps it up.
But you have a couple of very distinct looks in that film. I've never seen you with curls like that before.
Yeah, I had the most amazing hairstyles in that movie. Oh my gosh, it was a joy to have awesome hair like that. And then at the end of the night, pulling out 1,000 bobby pins was a different story. But my sister-in-law actually was my hairdresser for that show.
Oh,
she's a professional hairdresser, and Brian, everybody kind of has a look or a theme in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sci-fi, but every character has something special about them. So when this movie actually comes out, you can kind of see. And, I was able to have a lot of retro looking hairstyles, mm-hmm. kind of match different timelines. So it was pretty unique and pretty awesome.
Yeah. And you had some really unique outfits in that movie too, I have to say.
You did. I had some amazing outfits.
Did you typically do the design of those, or were you working with someone?
No, actually, Brian's sister, she also did wardrobe for that. She is quite the stylish fashionista. So
Wow.
it went with the themes that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You might see something that looks, from the, something 1920s, then you'll see something like 1970s. You kind of get that vibe with different characters.
Yeah. Well, everything that I saw in the trailer and in the stills, you really popped on screen. And I think that's one of the things that really kind of drew me into it was that visually, it's a very stunning piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that a lot. I see mostly like, okay, here's the setting, here's the stuff that happens. But there's just something about, I don't know if it's the combination of the hairstyles, the wardrobe, the characters, the way it was shot. But there's something that just is very visually intriguing about that film. And that's part of one of the reasons I really want to see the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm hoping I can make that happen.
Do it. And I fully, whatever I can do to help, you just let me know.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Give me some money.
Well, I'll go out on the strip tonight and show some leg and see what I can get for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Usually I just don't make any money at that, but I'll see what I can do. But you bring up an interesting point because now you're talking, some years ago, and obviously, as you've grown as an actor, as you've directed, as you've been a producer and you've been on sets working with a lot of other people, your skills have grown. And it's kind of weird sometimes to go back and look at those older things that we've done where we're like, maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was back then.
Mm-hmm.
Are you one that likes to watch yourself on screen or do you not?
No. Oh my gosh. It is so trippy seeing myself up there. I love it, but it's hard because that's kind of all you're focusing on is your performance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should have done that. Oh, gosh. But it's so out of body for me. For me, when I do a film or I become a character, I really like to kind of just leave it there. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to watch yourself and you're taken out of that's me, then you did a good job. As if you're just a spectator,
right,
watching this movie. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to separate from that when you watch yourself. But I've had the opportunity to see that, quite a few times in some of my performances, and that makes me happy.
I would think that if it's a character that you really locked onto and became, versus someone that you played. I think there's a difference between those two things. If it's a character you really became, I would imagine it's easier to watch it because you're not seeing yourself, you're seeing the character versus maybe something that you didn't have such a strong connection to.
Yeah. Well, Blood Moon, I had a fun time watching that, but that movie is just a fun, movie. Mm-hmm. And, with Crushed Velvet, that I really, really, really delved into that character. And I think I had told you before, we were working so much and I was going to college at the time. Yeah. I was literally, the story is, she's locked in this game show and she's locked into this, prison kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I literally stayed at this studio in this room without any light on a popped air mattress. After filming, writing my, finals and my papers and then getting to sleep for 3 hours, then getting up and getting ready for the next day. So I felt like I was kind of living that character's life in a way. So it helped me with that.
And instead of just waiting another week until after you were done with your finals and you could afford another mattress, you're going to shoot a film in the middle of all of that.
Exactly. Why not?
Why not?
Never a dull moment.
I feel like I have a little bit of an advantage as a composer over an actor because I have released, I think it's 26 or 27 albums now. And a lot of the older albums, when I look back on them, I actually pulled them all off the market because they were recorded with, sounds that aren't up to the par where I'm at now. My level as a composer wasn't where it is now. So I'm actually going back and revamping a lot of those songs for re-releasing these albums. I want to do one a year over the next few years because I think it was 14 of them that I pulled off. Wow. But as an actor, you can't go back and reshoot those scenes. You can't recut that film with you in it all of a sudden 10 years later. Is that kind of a hard thing? Are there things that you would rather, you know what, I wasn't really up to par where I am now. I really don't want you to see that.
I mean, there is that thought there because 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
12 years is, you've changed a lot. You've grown a lot. You've learned a lot. You've honed your skills. And then you go back to that and you say, oh, if I release this, are people going to think, this is my performance now? But, it's all part of that process. There's a lot of famous actors out there who, didn't come on as a child actor, as a star. So, just being a part of it and, having it there. I know a lot of actors are embarrassed about different things. I mean, I think the first thing I did was a Peter Piper pizza commercial.
Really?
Yeah. And people ask me, and sometimes I'm like, oh, that was the first thing I did.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why I have so many friends that have done food commercials. I have a friend that was in a Taco Bell commercial, and I think I knew somebody that was in a Burger King commercial, but nothing else. Like everyone I know has just done food. And it's not like it's low-hanging fruit or anything. I mean, you get whatever commercial you get.
Exactly.
But, I think too, as somebody who's a fan of you, I think I would want to see the older stuff that you've done because I would want to see that progression. I'd want to see where were you at 10 years ago? How much have you grown and learned? What opportunities have you had? I mean, when I'm a fan of an actor, though, I kind of want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I love going back and watching things that people did, like auditions especially. I love seeing when people audition for things because they're so different even from the characters that they ended up playing.
It's true. I do love seeing that too. You make a really good point. Even when you're in film school, you're getting shown, the first film that this, famous director made, and it's not that great, or, maybe it was for the time, but you just see that, oh my gosh, look where they are now and where they started. So you make a really good point.
Well, thank you. And I think a big mistake that we make in general as whatever field in entertainment that you're growing in, we're always just comparing ourselves to the top of the A-list, right? So if you're a director, you're going to I want to be the next Spielberg. Well, why don't you start out just learning, like aspire to be that, that's fine, but don't hold yourself to that standard because you haven't learned everything he's learned. You don't have the experience that he's had. You've got to start growing somewhere. And I think a lot of people do that in a way that becomes self-defeating. And they'll quit because they don't attach to that kind of success right away. And they're holding themselves to a standard that's really not attainable anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you.
Now, when you're watching audition tapes or you have people audition for you, how much stock do you put in the audition versus what you see them being able to do?
A lot of times, for the independent films that I have been involved in casting and different things like that, a lot of times you are looking for, and I hate to say it, you're looking for a certain look, and then you're trying to find someone with the ability to act, and to pull that character off and that has that chemistry and, where am I going with this?
Well, I think there definitely, I mean, we live in a very visual medium. Well, you do more than I do because I do music, which is unfortunately oftentimes visual. You have to have the image to represent the single. You have to have the album cover. You have to have an image in the video. But more so with film because you have to have people that can pull off a realism to the actor or the character that they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
But if they give a halfway decent audition, but they have the perfect look, and you see, your audition really wasn't where I wanted it to be, but I think we can work with you. Is that something that you would potentially see you wanting to work with that person, or would you be more like, okay, but do we have somebody better?
If I felt that person was, right for the role and they just needed a little bit of work, and that really is up to, the director to make that call. However, it's it is somebody I would be willing to work with. I mean, where we got our start in the independent world and everything, your choices are, kind of limited and who is auditioning for you and what you're looking for. And you do have to work with people.
Right.
But, I'm always one, I like to be surprised by people. A lot of people don't audition well. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, we like to do, callbacks and different things like that, or a chemistry test or something like that to see, can they do it?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I remember listening to, Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey have a podcast called The Office Ladies, and they're talking about, they break down an episode of the show on each podcast episode, and they were talking about the audition process. And they had so many people that the directors and producers were interested in that they actually started doing a lot of chemistry tests between people. And that's how they ended up with the final cast that they did, was because it was just Jenna Fisher and John Krasinski just had the best chemistry together. And then they picked them to be on the show, which obviously worked very well.
Yes.
But is it sometimes, do you find that there's a couple people that have really good chemistry and it's really just hard to choose who you want?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a criteria that you use to really just make a decision, or do you just pick?
No, usually it's not, for me, it's usually not my final decision.
Oh, okay.
So, it's really the director's call in the end of everything.
So you're narrowing down choices and saying, okay, here's the ones that we really think stand the best chance, and now it's up to you. Exactly.
I mean, from a producer standpoint, you're like, okay, well, you also have to look at, how much it's going to cost, the business side of everything.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's an excellent point, because you do work now. I mean, in independent film, it's like most people aren't getting paid anyway. But when you're up to the level that you guys are at, yeah, now you are paying people. You do have a lot of things to consider. There's scheduling. If they can only work so many days because they're finishing up another project, that's going to hold you up. There's so much that goes into those decisions. It's really a lot more than just the audition process.
Yeah, so much more.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess with that kind of success, it would make sense that more challenges come along the way. But that's you're where you want to be, right? This is where you always wanted to get to.
Yeah, you know what? It is. I can say, I've been able to accomplish a lot of things I've dreamt about since I was a little girl. And prove naysayers wrong. I don't think I've completely made it yet, but I'll take that compliment to the grave.
Well, do we ever really make it? I mean, this business is a grind. You're always fighting for the next project or the one after that. And there's no, it's not like an 8 to 5 job where they just they hire you, and as long as the company's open and you do good, you have a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of always on the line, and as long as you're always doing your best and keeping up good relationships, then there's really no reason for people not to give you another chance.
Yeah, exactly. You just got, you work hard, and it's a hustle. This isn't a full-time job, 365 days a year. You have maybe a month.
Right.
And then, your next job, when's that going to happen? When's that going to come down? When's the green light going to turn on?
Right. I mean, about halfway through a production, you need to start thinking about your next production and start networking while you're trying to finish this production. And it's just it's a continual roller coaster, really.
It's a fun little circus we call filmmaking. We like it.
I like that. Actually, it's funny that you say that, because I just started writing a piece of music this morning called Carnival. So that actually worked really well. Now you were acting in another film called The Second.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited about it.
What can you tell us about that one?
That movie starring Ryan Phillippe, directed by Brian Skiba.
Who's Brian Skiba?
I don't know. He's this strange guy I just met. Then my husband,
who was on a recent episode of this very show.
He was.
Yes.
We filmed it over the summer. It is absolutely intense, amazing movie. Just being on set was like watching a live movie happening in front of you. It was just absolutely amazing. The stunts and effects in this movie are incredible. The acting I mean, Casper Van Dien and Ryan Phillippe, William Catt, I got to work again right across from. So excited.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so many wonderful people in this film. I just heard that it got picked up for theatrical distribution. So I'm super excited to be on the big screen.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I imagine that the goal after that in distribution these days is to get on one of the streaming networks, whether it be Netflix or Hulu or something. Mm-hmm. So you do the theatrical, then that, and then it comes out for online like Amazon, Apple movies, and then DVD release.
Correct. Yeah, that one will be Netflix.
Very cool. I have Netflix, so yay. But theatrical first, so that's very, very exciting. Is this
really exciting?
Is this your first theatrical release?
No. No, it's not. I mean, I've had theatrical releases, but the way they were done, you know, it was, you know, in a limited amount of theaters.
Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, the bigger theatrical release, yes, this would be my first one.
Well, I am very excited for you. And
Thank you.
You know, I've been in the theater when my music has played in the movie. And I also, my minimal acting that made it into Jason Bourne, it was amazing to go to the theater and see yourself on the big screen or hear something that you've created on the big screen. There's nothing like that in the world.
So cool. Best
really
feeling
is.
ever.
Absolutely. I love that. And so we'll be looking forward to that. That is called The Second. And once that comes out, do let me know and I'll put that out on the, out on the web so that people can check that out. In the middle of all of this, though, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was how do you have children, you have a husband who's gone when you're not on set, you're working from home. There's so much going on in your household. How do you manage all of that and have any sanity left?
Well, I'm questioning that myself. But, you know, I just make it happen. I really don't know sometimes how I manage it. I like to think I'm pretty organized, but I'm not sure I am. But, you know, you just got to do what you got to do. And, you know, I've also been dealing with some, you know, health stuff that I've been getting treatment for. So that has kind of thrown a wrench in it and made everything a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But, you know, you do what you can and do what you got to do, you know, to get through this life and, you know, to support your family and yourself. And you just make it work. You have to.
I think the ability to just roll with whatever comes your way, the immediate change, here's an emergency I need to handle, and doing the best you can to keep your head straight. I think those have to be keys to that.
Yeah. You know, I feel like I've had a lot of life, a lot of experiences in my life and, you know, hard things that I've dealt with, you know, even before meeting my husband that have kind of prepared me for where I am today and what I can handle. And I know that I will survive and tomorrow will be a brand new day.
Very good. Well, I think that attitude is what really makes it work, because I think it's too easy these days. People just kind of want to bitch and moan about everything or be the result of something happening instead of taking control of it. But if you want to be successful, you've got to say, okay, here's what's happening. Here's how I'm going to handle it, and just take an action.
Yeah, you got to take control over it, not let it take control over you.
Exactly. And obviously, you know, having kids takes a certain level of patience anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but to be able to handle, well, we had to extend the shoot. I'm going to be gone another 2 weeks. And you were, you know, certain things you were working around, maybe Brian being back home, having to roll with those changes. I mean, there's so much to it. I applaud anyone that can manage that and even keep their sanity, let alone maintain a successful career, a successful household. That's awesome. Well done.
Thank you. I am a hot mess express. I'm still chugging along.
But you seem to be doing great. The appearance of it is very well controlled. So I'll just say that. Well, so what's next for you?
Oh gosh.
I mean,
What's
so you're
next
working
for
on the thriller in between all the other things, but
working on that, at the wee hours of the morning when I have peace and quiet.
mhm.
I'm currently in development on a Western and a Christmas film with some very well-known people attached. I can't say their names yet
Sure.
for legal reasons,
Of
but
course.
I'm very excited about that. I'm also working on that with my husband.
And in 10 months, we'll be able to see it. That's the hard thing about the industry, especially when you're dealing with something that's seasonal, is that you have to shoot it off season and pretend that it's the season that you're pretending it is, but you're sweltering hot while you're shooting a Christmas movie and freezing cold while you're shooting movies that appear to be in the summertime.
Uh-huh.
It's such a backwards thing just because of the schedule. I mean, nobody's going to say, okay, I'm going to invest in a Christmas movie. We're going to shoot it during the holidays now so that it can come out a year from now. Nobody's going to invest their money and let it just sit there for 12 months.
You got to get that show going. We just did that. For the Christmas movie, it was hot. It was the summertime in California, and we needed to make it snowy and cold. And then when we were in Florida, it was supposed to be hot and sunny, and it was rainy and cloudy. So
right. Yeah. Well, that's it. And I remember when I interviewed Dee Wallace a couple of months ago, she was saying that, because Cujo is shot to make it look like it's in the summertime. So they're in the car, they're just sweating, they're dehydrated, but they were freezing cold. And they eventually installed an extra heater into the car that they could run between takes.
No way. I didn't know that. Oh, I love that movie.
It is a great movie. And it's so interesting to see how good Danny Pintaro was, being so young and doing those long days in the car. I mean, most kids don't have that kind of ability to just sit there.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they actually had to install the heater, and I'm glad that they did that. But man, it's again, it just is that, what are we willing to do to create the movie that we want to create?
And you make it happen.
Well, I cannot wait to see what happens next. I'm looking forward to these films coming out and the next things that you're lining up. And
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad to see, because I've known you from the time that you were an indie filmmaker, and I'm so glad to see how you guys have built these careers, how you're getting the budgets to make the movies that you want to make and make them the way that you want to make them, because that really is so important when you have a dream.
It is. It's a blessing. It's been a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice. But, we're going to keep going, and I'm not done yet.
No, not at all. And then, so before we wrap up, my last question for you is, for people that are getting into the independent film world now or have been in it for a while, do you have any advice or anything for them to work towards the level that you guys have achieved?
We really sharpened our knives actually doing film competitions.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that, because they were so short, they were really tiny little films, you do on a weekend or whatnot. And that really gave us a lot of experience to build on.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about like the 48-hour film challenge?
Yeah, the 48-hour film challenges, the ones we did with the Almost Famous Film Festival, those kind of challenges for us at the time. I mean, we both went to school. We both had film school, but not all the time. I had film instructors telling me, because I was already producing at the time, that I could probably, teach that class. And I said, no, I'm here to learn. Mm-hmm. I'm here to learn something. I'll get something out of this, and that was either, I learned how to use, a camera then. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to touch the camera. I didn't want to, know how to use it, but in school I did. So, keeping your education going, working hard, and never giving up.
Yes. I think too, you touched on something there. I think knowing that there is always more to learn and more to know, because I think we tend to just get comfortable and I know what I'm doing. I've done this before, and not think that maybe there's other ways to do this that could be more efficient or more cost effective or easier. Or maybe there's things I don't know about it at all. I think we tend to just get to a point where we get comfortable and we don't push to learn anymore. Yeah,
we should never stop educating ourselves and being better.
I agree.
You know, whether that's being a better communicator because you are dealing with people on a film set, you know, hone those skills.
Now more than ever, because the technology is growing so quickly that you need to learn to adapt to those things on top of everything else.
I know. I still have to ask my kids questions about how to use my phone.
Yeah, it's, you know, growing up in the age that we did when, you know, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but when Pong was a big thing, that was like the greatest thing in the world. And then watching it go from Atari to television and ColecoVision and now home computers. And now, I mean, cell phones can do far more than an Atari ever could. I'm starting to get to that point where I'm like, I think this is moving faster than I can intake anymore.
I know. It's hard to catch up.
So I might hit you up with some questions to ask your kids if you don't mind.
Okay, they'd be happy to help. They're my little IT team.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Laurie, it has just been such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad we were able to arrange this. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. So great talking to you. Thank you for having me, Scott. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And definitely come back and see us again when the next movie comes out. Come talk to us about it.
I would love to.
When you can contractually reveal the things that you can't reveal today.
I will.
Thank you so much, Laurie. You take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Just somebody that has ideas. They go for it. They give it everything they have because you know what? You make your own life. You can, you know, you can be stuck under someone else making your life, or you can decide to make it for yourself and start building as she did and make it happen. So thank you, Laurie, for coming on the show and sharing your experiences with us and your knowledge and some fun stories. And thank you guys for checking out another episode of the HaskinCast podcast. I'll be back next week with another guest. And please share, like, rate, leave me a review. If you have any questions or feedback, Scott@scotthaskin.com. Thank you guys. Cheers.